We're going to need some Kleenex up in here. I'm serious. There used to be about 5 or 6 boxes around the sanctuary, but I don't know where they've gone. And Tim, shall I move there?
You want to bring that with you?
I'll bring this and that if that's okay. Seeing the burden which God has given to the children of humanity to be afflicted with. God has made everything beautiful in its time. Yet God has also set eternity in our hearts so that the people seek out the work that God has done from the beginning even to the end. I know that there's nothing better for them than to rejoice and do good as long as they live. Yet I know that whatever God does, it shall be forever. That which is has been long ago, and that which is to be has been long ago. God seeks that which has passed away. See, we don't even have the right verb tenses. But we bless the reading of the word anyway to our wisdom and understanding. In other words, we are made to live our lives, everything beautiful in its time. And that should be enough for us, shouldn't it? Should be enough for us. Life is beautiful. We know that. Humanists know that. Life is great. Just live your life. But for most of us, according to deep research, there's more. There's something that pulls. There's more. God has set eternity in us. And we know it and we feel it. And so we make stories. Once upon a time, something magical. This is my final message to Trinity Church. So I am asking you to imagine what beautiful story is unfolding for you in its time. What is Trinity's story? We've been asking, how did it begin? Some of you have talked about that, but I'm asking you to say, where will it take you next? Because it's not over. If you think it's over, you're making a serious mistake. Just like those people in the movies who go into the room thinking everything's fine and start to take a bath. That never ends well. Don't do that. Churches are like individuals in some ways. Even though they're a collection of people, they're like people themselves. Just like a novel is like a person, and they have characteristics, and you can recognize the tenor of a novel sometimes just by the first line. They're so prevalent in the Western world that they have a sense of their own. It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. You recognize that? Scarlett O'Hara was not beautiful, but men seldom realized it when caught by her charm, as the Tarleton twins were. Ships at a distance have every man's wish on board. Begins, their eyes were watching God. I am an invisible man, wrote Ralph Ellison. Spoiler alert on The Invisible Man. If you really want to hear about it, the first thing you'll probably want to know is where I was born and what my lousy childhood was like and how my parents were occupied and all that David Copperfield kind of crap. But I really don't feel like going into it if you want to know the truth. And when I read that in Catcher in the Rye, of course, I had to read the whole book. You better not never tell nobody but God. Alice Walker began The Color Purple with these words. And of course, our sacred texts are stories. They are stories so that in the Western consciousness, most of us have emblazoned in our minds, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. We are so thoroughly people of word and story that the first line of our founding theological text affirms that the Word came first, even before God. So I leave you with the great hope that Trinity understands that Trinity's story is nowhere near finished. And I very much hope that Trinity sees that story as the ultimate choose-your-own adventure. So here's what I see you're doing right now. You're fighting monsters. COVID, mechanical difficulties in the building, the fierce Texas heat out there as a dragon you've got to slay. In the past, you've had rags to riches adventures, haven't you? Big deficit, and then you have a fundraiser, rags to riches, Horatio Alger. Well, that part's over. Those novels were popular in the 30s, not anymore. You've gone on quests. It's another popular story trope, where you've gone off to right a wrong, and you have. You've done wonderful things in this state, which is not welcoming to the principles that you believe in. Maybe those kinds of stories are part of your overall story, but right now, I believe the story you're living is one of rebirth. You are, I wouldn't say literally, although it might feel like it, you're going through the fire, kids. Remember, I was in show business, so you're all kids to me. Going through the fire, but you're ready for it. And the reason I know this is that the last year has tried everyone's mettle, tried everyone's soul. It's been so hard for so many people. The work that's had to be done to get to where you are today has meant that only the strong have survived. But it could not have been done without the courage that people have shown. You can thank some people that are in the room for getting you here. Tom Hansen is one of them. Steen Major is another. Their contributions have been phenomenal. Kathy Moore is another. Matt Major is another. I don't even know if I have to tell you, but if I do, I will. You catch me, and you let me write you a book, what these people have done for your church. Just know that it's not insignificant, and it's probably more than you know. Those are staff and former staff people that when I got here, I'll be candid, I felt were taken entirely for granted, and I took steps that I could take to deal with. You have former staff that tragically the church could not support. You said a good farewell to Mark Moore. It was still very hard. Right now, you have lay leaders and volunteers emerging and activating and doing stuff, and I really want to cuss, doing stuff that I'm so pleased and privileged and just overjoyed to see happening. Things are happening. Those monsters outside are being fought back. And I almost think some of you are enjoying it. What's fun about sitting around and going, yeah, we're good. We had church today. We had church. That's not fun. What's fun is saying, you know what? We were tried, we were tested, and we showed what we could do. That's fun. So I want to acknowledge those people. And the current staff, Marielle Fiorello went in and said, you know what? Not only am I going to try to rebuild the children's program, I'm going to make friends with all the current tenants. And she did. And when it came time to renegotiate the leases, we were able to do it in a friendly way, which, no, it did not bring us up to market value on the rentals, but made advances so that the deficit you had was lessened. And maybe you won't be whole for 2022, but you'll be close. I can't thank her enough. I can't thank Major for sticking around. Catherine Daniels, not even a member of this church, but she protects us as best she can. And you have a wizard in your midst, and that's Tim Brace. Excuse me, but that's what he is. Where's his cape? He absolutely needs a cape. Now, I have a couple of things I would like for Trinity Church to think about doing. One is this, and I'm almost out of time, and I know that. You had, when you were on YouTube, hundreds of views. People found you on YouTube. Then you had to make the decision to do asynchronous worship so that your Quantum Church could worship at the same time with you. That was the right thing to do. Tim made it happen. The next step for you is to find a way to put that on YouTube so those other hundreds of people can find you. Tim can't do that alone. He needs help with that. You can do that, and when you do that, the outreach of this evolved new Trinity will grow again. That's why I have faith in your story. Your story can grow, and it will. That's your new story. If you don't do it that way, that's fine. But it's a story of rebirth, and I have nothing but faith. So what about the end of famous stories? I don't know if people remember any of those. The end of the Bible is written in there. Some sourpuss wrote at the end of Revelation. This is the end of the book, and anybody that adds to it will get a plague. Well, I don't believe that. The United Church of Christ doesn't believe that. The United Church of Christ affirms that God is still speaking. And if God is still speaking, it's my opinion that people should still be listening. And I believe that you can still listen, and you will. And that's the only way that your story and your new path will feel right to you. God is still speaking. God's story is still unfolding. Trinity's story is still unfolding. So I'm not going to say the end. I'm going to say, watch for season 2. Amen.